Welcome to Byte or Bill, the ultimate tech game show for Africa's boldest founders, freelancers, and professionals. Blending humor, storytelling, and bold trivia, each episode challenges the guests on African tech while spotlighting their personal journeys to inspire the next generation of builders and professionals. On today's episode, we have Dumebi. I've known Dumebi for, let me think about it. I think since the time of when Asha started, that was maybe about 6 years ago, roughly.
2018, 2019.
Yeah. And Dumebi is one of the, finest designers we have in Nigeria, and I can even say as well as Africa. And he's someone I've always looked up to. Especially about like your career growth. And I know I'm doing some sort of introduction for you right now, but like just introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
My name is Dumebi, head of design at Steers. Like you said, I've had an interesting career.
Yeah.
Started off as a radiographer and then moved fully to transition to design.
Yeah.
Worked as an art director in some agencies and then joined Big Kaba as head of design and currently serving as head of design at Steers. So yeah,
amazing. Great to have you. To set some ground rule on how Byte or Bill works is we have 15 questions that we have to go through and there are 3 checkpoints. So at every checkpoint, you win a mystery gift. So question 5, question 10, and the last question, which is question 15.
That's gift is a Lamborghini, right?
Maybe if we get, this is my camera, maybe if we get Lamborghini to sponsor us. Yeah, we would have one. Lamborghini is sitting pretty for you, but don't worry, we have amazing gifts for you. And the twist is that you have 2 options, right? You can either Byte or Bill if you find a question difficult. So let's say you've secured your gifts for the first checkpoint, second checkpoint, and you're at number 11, then you're struggling with it. You can either decide to Byte or Bill. If you Bill, you are saying that, I don't want to do it again. I just want to go with my gift and everywhere is good, right? But if you Byte, you're saying, I want to take a risk. So if you pass, all well and good. I'm moving to the next question. If you fail it, I'm collecting.
I lose everything.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm collecting all my gifts back. So that's the twist. So there's some sort of risk.
That is beating fast.
So we'll just get right into it. And this particular one this first question is I think it's a question that every designer is familiar with, because especially if you're like in product design, you've read this book. So the first question is, what is the title of the influential book by Don Norman that helped shape human-centered design, and in what year was it first published? Maybe the year might be tricky, but like the name of the book is
okay. So the book is The Design of Everyday Things. It was published in 1988.
Amazing.
And the fun fact is the original name of the book was Psychology of Everyday Things, and then changed to Design of Everyday Things.
Amazing stuff. I think I read it in 2022 when I was thinking about transitioning from brand design to product design. I found it very, very helpful, especially like things like learning things around affordance and all of this stuff. How you make people like show them
for how people think and how people already behave.
And I think one particular example in that book was the pull or push, the handle. It was just overall an amazing book.
Yeah,
amazing stuff. So question 1 in the bag. For question 2, this is a very interesting question, right? It says, which fintech startup founded in 2023 and backed by Y Combinator's Winter's 2024 cohorts offers US-based USD accounts to African freelancers to streamline international payments?
Okay. I think if I don't get this one, I will not get my Lamborghini. So this is Clever.
Right. And Clever, they are our sponsors. They're the one giving us the resources to be able to like pull this off. Thank you to Clever. And they basically just help African freelancers, even businesses, accept international payments. So they create a USD account for you that you can use to get funds from abroad if you are a freelancer, for instance, or even if you're a full-time employee and you want to get your salary and stuff, you can use Clever for that. Amazing stuff. So the next question is about hydroelectric dam that is in the Nile River in Egypt. So the question is, what is the name of the massive hydroelectric dam on the Nile River in Egypt? This one is tricky.
Is it the Aswan High Dam?
Aswan what?
High Dam.
Okay. We have that in the back too.
That's correct.
Yes, you are correct. Awesome. You're correct. Amazing stuff. Yeah, before we go to the next question, this question is number 4 now. I mean, you've worked there, so if you don't get this one, we'll chase you out of the studio. But before we go into the question, you were the design lead at Big Cabal, which is one of the, I mean, I would rightly say it's the biggest tech media platform in Africa, right? What would you say was one of your most impactful projects that you worked on during your time at Big Cabal, and why did it stand out?
It's a tricky question to answer because like Big Cabal is driven by impact, so everything had impact. So I'll answer from the point of view of what was most meaningful, because we did a lot of stuff but I'll say the most meaningful really was redesigning the Zikoko website, because it was a very big project. Like from outside, Zikoko is just this irreverent publication that talks about the youth and issues and how youth navigates life in Nigeria, Africa, and how to navigate different, from relationships to money to finance to different things. But Zikoko actually has depth. Like Zikoko has over 60 unique content categories.
60
and over 60. Like the way there is Naira Life. Yeah. There are 60 content stacks like Naira Life, right? Some they're no longer producing content in those categories, but each of them has hundreds of articles or quizzes or listicles within them. So it was a very big project, because the issue we had was people would go to zikoko.com and they would see just the first 10 articles. So the depth of the platform was invisible. It was difficult to navigate. Discoverability was an issue. And Zikoko did not just have articles. Zikoko also had video content, had quizzes. So we wanted to, and we had newsletters. So we needed to give visibility. We did deep research looking at some other media platforms out there. So it's a project that took us almost 4 months, just the design alone. Yeah. Took us I think it was 2 months, 2 months plus some weeks. Right. I remember even the site map took me I don't know how long it took us to get done, because just mapping, okay, these are all the content categories. These are the groupings. So for example, under relationship, there are maybe 10 to 15 content stacks. Under money, there are several content stacks. Under citizen, which is the content stack with which Zikoko talked about politics and what's happening in government and governance. There are several content stacks as well. So, and then we had to create kind of unique sub-identities for the different content stacks. So if you go to zikoko.com now, you notice that the accent color for money is different from accent color for relationships.
Is it green?
Money is green.
Right.
Yeah. Relationship is a different color. There's men content, Mandem has a different color and such. And it was really, of course, Big Cabal is a very opinionated organization in the sense that we have a Big Cabal way of doing things. There are very smart people with very bright ideas. So I think another big challenge there was managing stakeholders, because different people have different creative ideas. So you have to reject a lot of good ideas to choose, okay, this is the direction we need to go. So I say it's the most impactful for me. It wasn't the most visible project, right? But it was most impactful because the team learned a lot from it. And even designing an article page, you just take it for granted, oh, it's an article page. But there were a lot of considerations, especially because it's also an ad-driven business. So we needed to balance. Okay, let me put it this way. Serving ads has a different purpose. if you want to serve ads on a platform, you need to distract users from the content so they will focus on the ads. Because the more they notice the ads and click, the more money you make, like CPM and stuff. But then if you're designing content, the UX says that I want to optimize reading time, that you focus on the content. So there were conflicting things we needed to reconcile. So we needed to design the ad spaces in a way that fits into the content. It works, but it's not too disruptive to the reading experience. Like it was really a wonderful experience, especially even designing how it would, like what's it called again? Responsiveness, how the face would behave on different breakpoints, like on mobile, on web, on a tablet, and even like designing the mega menu and how it would behave differently. So of course we worked on Moonshot, and before Moonshot it was Future of Commerce, and I would just say that was the second. I know that's not the question because it's one of the most visible. I'll say that was the second most impactful. And I think the most important work the team did when it comes to producing conferences is creating a system that allows the team to produce hundreds of assets within a very short time. Because you're looking at Moonshot, there are, like, even just the screen in the stage has hundreds of different assets you're displaying on it, and then there are banners. There is the design of the working. There are different vendor assets. There is the design of the boats. So we had to create systems of tracking. Media. Exactly. So that's a create system, and then content we're using to promote the event online. So we had to design systems of tracking each individual asset to make sure it gets done when it's needed, and systems of tracking it with vendors, like print vendors, to make sure that they produce it at the quality that we needed. Because sometimes, especially you're used to designing for screens. When you design for print, the color will come out different. So we need to reconcile most of that. So I think these are like the two. You asked for one, I gave it two. So
amazing. Thank you for going in depth. And I think you already sort of mentioned the fourth question, but I'll just go over it for going over sake, right? What is the name of Tech About's flagship conference that unites Africa's ecosystem to collaborate and exchange ideas and celebrate innovation? You already mentioned it during your
Moonshot.
So that's like a bonus.
It's like a bonus question.
A bonus question for you. Amazing. And thank you for sharing that story. I think particularly with Moonshot, there's this the design system is sort of like what's it called now? 3D-ish in spaces, and it's different. And I think that event also sort of changed something in the way events are designed, because I'm seeing like a lot of events now. People are like now paying attention to like actually design for events and not just creating any random. So it's really amazing work. This is great to know.
Of course, like of recent, the team that have been doing that. I've not been there for the last 2 years plus, but kudos to the Big About team.
Amazing stuff. So we're going to our next question, which is question 5 now, which is a checkpoint. So the question is, which country's Electronic Communications Act includes a provision requiring foreign-owned telecom licensees to divest 30% of their local equity to historically disadvantaged groups?
I think this is South Africa.
Right.
Possibly why they're having issues with Starlink.
Right. I think if you've been on Twitter like a lot, there's like a lot of conversation around like how Elon Musk tweeted it recently that the South African government are being racist because they don't want to, and in the actual sense it's because of this act. Amazing stuff. So congratulations, we just hit a checkpoint.
I have the steering now.
Amazing. So we're going into the next checkpoint. But before we do that, another personal question for you. So you currently serve as a head of design at Steers, and I think it's something that a lot of designers struggle with, which is their some are independent contractors, some are just designer with no leadership title attached to it. And there's always that thinking, how do I progress in my career? What is like the next step? How do I get to being a lead designer, for instance, or being head of design? So like, what did you do? How did you grow into the leadership positions? And what does that path look like for people that are looking to do something like that? And what prepared you for it?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. I care about a lot. So I'll start by just painting a picture of what the design career ladder looks like in the startup world. So typically there's maybe the intern, and then there's designer, and then maybe mid-level or mid-level designer. They might just call it designer 2, whatever. And then there's the senior designer, and then depending on the team structure, at that point is where there are 2 pathways. But in most Nigerian companies, 1 pathway. So 2 pathways is many in like companies like Facebook or even Figma, bigger companies. They have a pathway to what they call individual contributor, where someone becomes more senior but doesn't necessarily lead a team. And there's the leadership pathway, where like you go from senior designer to design lead, where you're like leading projects, and then from design lead to can be design manager or the head of design, depending on the hierarchy of the team. So on the IC side, could be, you're now principal designer, staff designer 1, staff designer 2, and then maybe they will call it, sometimes they call it design lead 2, but you're leading like the design of specific features, not teams. So my path to head of design is really interesting, because even my path to design is super interesting as well. But I would say that for me, let me paint a picture of how I started designing. Maybe that would provide some context. So I started designing in school. I studied radiography in medical school. But during my 3rd year, I started playing with design as a hobby. And then growing up, I've always had an artistic side to me, but I've just done science courses all my life. Like my secondary school was a science-only secondary school, just to see how specific, my career path was designed by my parents.
So wanted to become
the goal was for me to be a doctor. So but I studied radiography, which is adjacent. So in my 3rd year, I started designing, and then it was just pure graphic design. I was designing. 3rd year. It's a 5-year.
What year was that?
2012.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started designing posters and flyers for, it was like campus fellowship. So just like programs. So basically title, venue, maybe the theme, and then maybe a picture and stuff. So I was just playing with layout. Fun fact, the first design tool I used is, I don't know if people remember it, Microsoft Publisher.
Oh, not even Paint.
Microsoft Publisher.
Interesting.
I've used Paint in the past. I remember in SS2, there was a time I used Photoshop to design a cover that I used to wrap my physics notebook. But it was more like the template. I just put my name and printed it out. So so that's how I started design. Then I started learning what they call it, Corel Draw. I actually used Corel Draw for years up until 2018. It was in 2018 that I started.
I think it's standard for like, if you want to work in agencies.
Well, it depends on the agency, really. Because when I worked in an agency proper, I was just Photoshop and Illustrator and like Adobe Stack, basically. So let me just move quickly at this point. So I started designing then, but it was just like a hobby. Like most of the design I did between 2012 to 2018 was for free. Like I would just do it for my guy.
That's like six years.
Yeah, and to be fair, I stayed. Like if I were to assess my growth within that point, I was like, how there's this Dunning-Kruger effect, and there's the peak of Mountain Stupid. I was on that peak of Mountain Stupid for 6 years. So I knew enough to think I was good. But I wasn't good, right? So actually in 2015, 16, I moved to Lagos for my internship as a radiographer. So I did my internship at Orthopedic Hospital, right? So when I came to Lagos, I was seeing design in Lagos. I was actually intimidated, right? So I stopped design. Like I wasn't really designing much because I felt like, oh, these guys are so good. Let me just focus on my main thing. But then I practiced radiography for like 2 years. Like first my internship, then I was working as a sonographer doing ultrasound. But fun thing is that there are actually skills in radiography that transfer to design, like pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Because in radiography, you have to like memorize images. You have to know, for example, how a good X-ray is. And so that when you see a bad X-ray, you can detect this is what the problem is and stuff. And of course, ultrasound has that as well. And other, we call them modalities, but other kinds of procedures. So, yeah, so in 2018, I actually went to O2 Academy. I don't know if you know about that. Yeah, so the fun thing is, so I went to O2 on scholarship. You know, I was lucky. Someone referred me and I pitched and got a scholarship. So I decided to go to O2 as a strategist. So my career could have been different, right?
Doing strategy behind the scenes.
As a brand strategist. Right, so I actually did my first because it's a 3 months program. Right, so I did my first month. No, it's a 2 months program. I did my first month as a strategist. Right, so just taking strategy courses because I felt like I already designed. Let me learn another valuable skill. Right, but then they gave us an assignment to create a pitch deck. And in that pitch deck, like just choose a random brand. And imagine that brand is launching in Nigeria. So design a brand strategy for them to launch. So I spent like maybe 2-3 hours. I chose Jeep because I love Jeep Wrangler. So I chose Jeep. I spent like 6 hours, like maybe 2-3 hours putting the content of the document together and then spend the whole night designing the deck. Like actually use Keynote to design the deck. So this was in 2018. So when I shared my assignment, the proprietor of the school, like, because my instructor was different from like the guy that's the proprietor of the school, like, so he called me and I was like, guy, you're not the strategist, you're a designer. Like,
realization.
You know, so he tried to convince me to just focus on design. That this is where my strength is, and I will have more fun doing something that is my area of competence. But I felt like, no, like, you know, like there's this mindset sometimes where I need to like show up all my weaknesses so that I'm balanced, you know. So I argued, no, that I want, you know, that day, even when I was going home, I was ranting that I want to stay in brand design, you know, but the choice was taken from me because we were allocated to groups for our group project, and I was the only art director in my group. So I had to do art direction. But then, end of the program, I graduated as the best art director because we did like different competitions and my different teams were first. And then we voted. So because of that, they retained me to teach. So that's how I taught at O2.
Interesting.
Yes, I taught at O2 for like maybe 9 months. Cause like roughly 9 months. Yeah, art direction.
Okay.
Yeah. So from O2, I went into agencies. I worked in 2 agencies. One was Isoba, which is now Densu Creative, and then Web Coopers. Yeah. But Web Coopers was like I expanded like some of my skills because that was where. When I was in O2, I started learning product design. It was more like interest-based learning. But so by the time I joined Web Coopers, that was where I started doing some product design. So for example, I played a tiny role as a junior product designer in the design of the current Globacom website. You know, and then we did a bunch of projects. Yeah, and then from Web Coopers, I joined Big Cabal, where I led, you know, brand and product design. And I actually built like the team and like improved some of the team processes there before I joined Steers, where I've been for the last probably 2.5 years, about 2.5 years. So yeah, that's my long ramble. Amazing. So in terms of what prepared me for it, I'll say to a large extent, one is the amount of years that I've been in design helps because there were some experiences I gained passively that would actually come into play. Another is my personality. And I say personality in the sense that I like to be like have an internal locus of control. Like I don't like to be too much. I don't like to worry too much about things I don't control. So in many situations, I'm happy, I'm joyful, despite what's happening around me. I've had times when in teams there is conflict, and because I'm able to be a bit level-headed, I'm able to navigate the conflict and manage things. So I think that has been because leadership has to do with a lot of people management. And then some discipline, like, because there's a lot of project management. You're not just executing, you're managing time, you're planning, you are negotiating not just timelines, you're negotiating priority, like should we do this before this? You're managing relationships between different stakeholders. Because there are teams where different teams want different things from design, and you have to manage them based on which one is more important and let people know that, I've not forgotten you, but we're going to attend to you by so time and keep your word. So and then like when I was in Web Coopers, I started mentoring designers. So the fact that I was now talking to people about their careers and advising them based on my experience also helped improve my ability to not just think about myself as a designer, but think about other people's careers. Because when I joined Bicabel, I had to hire people. I had to appraise them based on their performance. I had to manage them. And during my whole time of leading teams, I've had to also let people go. So knowing how to manage difficult conversations, difficult situations, and all of that.
Yeah. So how did you, you were a radiographer, and then you went to like do a short course that eventually led you to design, right? How did you manage that transition? Because did you leave your job after you got the...
I left my job I left my job as a radiographer before I did the course. So it was during the time I was trying to find, what will I now do?
Interesting.
Yeah,
so I left my job. Enjoying the radiography?
Yeah, I resigned from radiography like 2017, end of 2017.
Interesting.
Right, like my last job as a radiographer. Even though like through December to like maybe up to March of 2017, I was still doing like part-time locum, like if a radiographer is traveling, I'll just cover for them for a day kind of stuff. But then within 2018, I think I started the course in around August-ish. Yeah.
So you took like a career break to...
Yeah, I did.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a difficult period because I looked very stupid. No, for real, because like if you know about radiography, at the time when I studied radiography, they were not up to 1,000 practicing radiographers in Nigeria. And also like around the world, especially like UK, Australia, like the part of the world that is more really like the educational system fits the UK method of teaching or curriculum. Radiography is hot cake. So like 90% of my classmates are working in NHS in UK today.
Interesting.
Right. So it's such a career that is quite easy to japa, so to speak. So when I made that decision, in fact, it was in when I became head of design in Bicabel, was the first time my mom introduced me to her friends as a designer.
She was like, you were
so it was more like, Dumebi is a radiographer, he's living in Lagos, he's working in Lagos. So that was when it became like, it looked like, there's actually
something here.
So it looked like, he will still find his way back.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Bicabel is big, and I mean, everyone knows them. So it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. So let's go back to our trivia. I think this one is pretty much straightforward too. What is the official currency of Egypt?
So this is very easy for me.
Right.
I work in stairs.
Yeah.
And we deal with financial data.
Right.
And I worked on a product that's like, we have a product that tracks movement of African currency. So Egyptian pounds.
I think I need to make these questions a little more difficult. But yes, Stairs is an amazing company, and I'm looking for how I'm going to... But anyway, that's the conversation for another day. I need to get into your data, and So we're going to question 7 now. It says, which Nigerian tech entrepreneur founded Konga.com and uLesson, and also previously launched emotion, outdoor advertising, and the daily deal site. Deal day. Deal day.
Yeah, this should be. I might get the name wrong, but pronunciation will be right. This should be Sim Sagaya.
Amazing stuff.
Is also you just said Miva University.
Yeah, Miva University, yeah.
And he also has another education. Okay, that's your lesson.
You lesson, yeah, you lesson. Amazing. Yeah. You are eating my questions for lunch. So we're going to question 8. This is venture capital. I think this should also like be, because I mean, so yeah, in venture capital lingo, what does a down round generally mean for a startup?
Okay, this is a technical one. So a down round is when a startup raises fund, like they raise fund, but at a lower valuation than their valuation in the previous round. Yeah.
Final answer. Yeah, amazing. So let's say you raised 10 million for your first round, and then you are trying to raise maybe because of the economic situation.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
I think this was facing a couple of Nigerian startups.
Yeah, there's paucity of funds. But I think also generally it's like the way the graph, you have your highs and then your lows. I think we're currently at that low now.
Yeah, so like I think if working in stairs and looking at financial data, I think I have some insight into some of the things happening here.
Yeah.
Because like someone shared an analysis on Twitter today that for like if you invest an equivalent amount in dollars in US, US inflation is I think 3 to 4%. Nigerian inflation officially is about 20-something percent.
Yeah.
Nigerian annual currency devaluation is I think it's roughly 6 to 7%. That's if you plot, even though it has spiked in the last couple of months and the last year. So you might actually make 10x returns in
just
Naira.
by saving in
right. You make 10x returns, but because your valuation is in dollars and you're accounting to your investors in dollars, there was a time when 10x is barely breaking even in dollars. And I think as of today, 10x is probably 2.5x in dollars. So you have to, and 10x is like let's say you put in capital of maybe $1,000 and you're coming up with $10,000 in returns. So it's really difficult to like use your growth, like your currency growth as a metric to convince investors that, oh, this is a very good investment. So I think a lot of startups, where their strengths are now is in their modes, like how valuable is your service and how valuable will it be within the next 10, 15 years. And now like I think a lot of investments happening, a lot of the bigger investments happening now are even like debt, like debt equity, where even though there are some where it's a bit of convertible debt, where if this company meets this criteria, some percentage of it can become equity. So I think for startup, we have opportunities to learn. Like this is not happening. Nigeria is not the first place that is experiencing this kind of thing. We can look at countries like a lot of Asian countries have gone through economic periods. Like so a lot of lessons there.
I also think that it explains why there's a lot of focus on global expansion, especially amongst the big guys, right? They don't want to, because I mean, you are working 10 times harder, but you're getting in dollar terms, right? But thank you for sharing that. So I knew you've touched a bit about this, but I think I want us to sort of look at how you've been able to connect everything you've been doing, from radiography to art director, now to design. What's that central connector among everything you've been doing so far in your career?
Yeah, so I think 2 things that has helped me navigate maybe 3 that has helped me navigate the transitions in through my growing up and my career to where I am today is, one is that I think I've been naturally creative from when I was young. I'll just mention the three of them and just talk through how they played a role in my life. So I've been naturally creative from when I was young. Two is that I love to learn. And I guess the third, which is related to the second, is that I have this multidisciplinary approach to doing work. Let me put it that way. So the creativity, like in as much as like growing up, I never really studied art.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't ever do fine art.
Yeah.
Or any core arts related.
Science boy.
Yeah. But I was surrounded by books. So like from when I started to read, I started reading encyclopedias and like science books. And I've been always fascinated by the pictures and the images. I think when I was in primary school, maybe primary 4, my mom gave me and my sister scrapbooks. So basically this is like an album but bigger, just empty. So we cut out things we like and paste it in it. Like I can kill to find that scrapbook today. But I know that we used to cut out like ads from magazines like Newsweek magazine, like my dad's old magazines and stuff from newspaper, comics. So I didn't know I was in quote mood boarding,
right?
So to speak. It was just like a hobby for us then. I know when I was in secondary school, I used to collect like 10 naira to draw stuff, like, you know, like agri or stuff, inter-science. We draw
assignments.
Yeah, so we draw things in our note, like maybe draw a wheelbarrow or draw a secatua, remember, and stuff like that. So I think it was when I like went back to design, and like when I actually started designing, that like some of those creative things I used to do, like it came easy for me. So like mood boarding was quite easy because I'm already used to reading wide. Like I used to read things that are not related to what I was studying at all. And I love to learn. Both my parents were teachers, so like we grew up around books. I had more books than toys. So like I just love to learn. So and I read a lot of novels. So I think that expanded my imagination. And like the multidisciplinary approach, like I think even radiography is a multidisciplinary course because like to study radiography, not only did like human anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, we also did pharmacology, we did a bit of nursing, did a bit of psychology, did like nuclear physics, radiation physics, radiobiology, you know. So it was a course that required us to master several unrelated disciplines and then draw a line to, this is how they relate to each other to produce, or this is how they come into play here. So I think that expanded my mind, that when I was going into design, it was easy for me to transit from being just a graphic designer at the beginning to becoming an art director. And then as an art director to pick up an interest in product design. And like then I wasn't earning a lot, but I used my money to pay for Interaction Design Foundation. Then this was 2009, 2019, right? No, 2009, I think. 2019. Yeah.
I think I did mine 2021 or 2020.
Yeah. You know, so like I started really learning various things. Like even when I was in Web Coopers, I was doing stuff like Instagram filter design. There's this special ads on Google that they call Google Interactive Ads that like if you're scrolling, the ads will be kind of like animated, but it's like HTML5 kind of ads. You know, so like I think that followed me, that when I started stepping into design leadership, like I had to learn things like articulating my thoughts and thinking clearly, right? How to write, communicate, like professional communication, how to convince management to take a strategic decision, how to be data-driven in my decision making, how to manage people, like how to like encourage people, how to train people and help them upskill, how to walk people through doing difficult things, and know that okay, this is the job, right? And then but breaking it down so that it's step by like to reduce overwhelm. That is okay, this is what you need to do, then you do this, then you do this, and if you do it consistently, you get here.
These results,
Yes, I think these are like the three major things that play together And I would also say like people that I've had in my life, mentors, like even some of the CEOs and founders I've worked with that have guided me and given me very good feedback. I think one of the two best feedback I've gotten in my design career. One was when I was working in an agency and my CEO then told me that I designed that was in Isoba.
Okay.
Yeah, I designed like an old man. So like that was like a reality check because like I had this rigid approach that everything has to be left aligned. There's only like background color, like color will only come in the background or the text, and like it's like I had this rigid approach, but he helped me to break like it was a mental barrier to like have a flexible design. He was sharing stuff from Nike, like from a lot of innovative brand. Then every day I was on Budweiser India's Instagram page because their designs were really fascinating and they were playing with a lot of textures and layering in their designs, and I was like adopting it, and it expanded, my mind. I think the second most important feedback I got was in Bikabau. And the feedback was make sure that what you're taking as priority is a business priority. Because sometimes as designers, we focus on, we produced 20 social media designs this week and it's a good week. But maybe the business needs a pitch deck design, or the business needs a presentation done. Or the business needs, or like there's this stack launching, design a newsletter for it. And sometimes there are weeks where you only have one deliverable. Like one delivered deliverable, and you feel like it's not a productive week. So because of that, you start optimizing for, I want to do 20 things. I can see these are 20 things I did, but if it's not valuable to the business, you wasted everybody's time.
True that.
So I think that really helped me to start planning better. Understanding what is it that matters. How do we move the business forward? And then what are the things the design team can do to make that happen. And I think that has really helped me through my design leadership career. Yeah.
So you took some courses, ODD, one of them. Can you also maybe touch on those and how it has sort of helped your journey along the way?
So like I did ODD. I started ODD when I was
on deck.
Yeah, on deck design fellowship. It's now Coho. I did ODD when I just joined the Cabal because like I recognized there's a big gap because there's a big gap in my skill set to work here, because I like to say there are three aspects to being a design manager. There is the leadership, leading the team, like day to day, encouraging people, helping them grow in their careers, helping them work towards the vision of the company. There is management, like you're getting the job done. Are you doing what have you done today? What did you do yesterday? Managing stand-up meetings.
What did you get on today?
Yeah, but like I don't know why people are criticizing, because daily stand-up, that's basically it. What did you do today? What are you working today? Elon Musk is even weekly stand-up. What did you get done this week? And then like I think the last is operations. Operation is making sure the team has everything it needs to run. Things like Adobe. Do we have the right softwares? Do we have the right Figma? Do we have the right laptops and tools? Or maybe someone's laptop is bad, helping facilitate it. Like I remember one time having to ship a laptop from Lagos to Sapele to a team member just to make sure they have the right tool to work. Those are like the operational parts. Of course, that doesn't cover everything operational. So I recognize I had a huge skill gap. And so joining on deck helped me to learn frameworks. Like I remember when I was talking about career leveling and those are some of the things I learned on deck. That like a design team, like you're meant to build what's the career ladder, right? And even progressively, like with the company, have what are the salary bands for those roles? What are the rubrics? What are the criteria for someone? What's different between a junior designer and senior designer? And if someone is going to move from junior to senior, what metric? What do they have to meet? What does meet expectation mean? What does if you're doing appraisal, what's the criteria is to say this person met expectation? What criteria would you say they exceeded expectations? and how well, like, aligning the expectations they are setting to business goals, as well. And I had a wonderful session because, like, the person that was in charge of the design ODD, like the top mentor, was David Hong, who is currently, I think, VP of design at Atlassian. Is it Atlassian that owns Jira? They own Jira. Yeah. He used to be. He was in head of design or VP of design at Webflow. Then he moved to Replit, the Atlassian now. I remember having a session with him, and I think some of the questions I asked him was around hiring, because sometimes there is in terms of managing workflow in the team, so sometimes there is that push and pull between, I need to hire an additional person to get this done, versus, the company say, use the people in the team to get the job done. So, like, I had to ask questions, okay, how do you manage it? Because he had a wonderful session about planning your, like, for the year, you can plan, okay, these are the people I need to hire. I think one of the most important things I learned from it, that the most important job of a design leader is hiring people. Because it's the quality of people you have in the team that determines the quality of work that gets done. So it means that you have to think a lot about what's the criteria for hiring, and recognizing that talent is abundant, but it's scarce at the same time. Because, like, we've hired where we got 600 applications and we only need to hire one person. And it's tough, because you have to go through most of those. Like, in fact, everything. It's just that we'll have rubrics to, like, in stages, okay, this is the strict criteria. So maybe we'll narrow down from 600 to maybe 50. And then from 50, we interview maybe 10. And then, progressively culture, technical interview and such. So I learned a lot about hiring. I learned a lot about stakeholder management. I learned a lot about, they call it more like the influence that design has, and how to wield that influence. Because sometimes as designers, designers are actually good at storytelling, and we're good at convincing people because we can wireframe an idea. But also being careful, because sometimes you can be so excited and put out something so pretty that you take the company on a wrong tangent and waste 1 week. And I think one of the most important things I learned, through some of those trainings is that for you as a designer, from your perspective, you're like, these are the job I'm getting done. But from the company, in their head, okay, this entire design team is costing the company X amount. So they're asking themselves, for this 4 months, has this team generated at least that same amount or more? And, like, personally, I believe that the design team is a very powerful leverage for startups, because design teams have the capacity to generate outsized value for companies, helping, like, move as quickly as possible to get to product market fit and launch products that, people really care about. Some of the trainings I've done, like, I think in the last year, I did a design system training. It was offered by Dribble. Unfortunately, they've stopped it. Was facilitated by Damo. And I learned a lot about that training.
So it's now standalone on its own. I think it's
it's no longer just design training. It's just UX, like the whole process. With design. I think design system is a subset of it now. But that was like a core design system course. That was very hands-on. Like, we built design systems from scratch, both code and design. And I think that really expanded my mind, in the sense that, because sometimes as designers, especially when you're doing a lot of product design, we work in silos.
Right.
And that creates a lot of conflict with the engineering team, because we feel strongly about handoff. And we'll say, I did this and I gave the engineer and he gave me something else. But I think for me, one of the most important things I learned through the training was that you are a team. Like, the designer and the front-end engineer especially is a partnership. And even, like, one thing I learned from my own CEO gives me design feedback for something in production. So if a button looks wrong, he doesn't reach out to the front-end engineer, he reaches out to me, because I'm responsible for how the product is presented to users. So that means that I have a very important role to play in QA, to make sure that the production, what's in production is what is intended.
Yeah.
And that means that I have to start collaborating with engineers from the research stage of design so that the engineer is aware of all the new components I'm going to increase. Like even from design system, is aware of, okay, these are the new components, this is going to be different, this is a new interaction. And then like we have robust QA processes, like where engineers even give us design feedback. And then when things are in testing, like we give robust feedback as well and testing there. So like, yeah, I think the courses I've taken really taught me a lot in some of the best practices in leading design teams, especially when you're working on innovative things or things that are not new, that are not common in the particular market.
Amazing stuff. That's some really amazing nuggets that you shared. So let's go back to our question so we don't lose track. So this one, we're going to South Africa, and it's which South African fintech company founded in 2019 in Cape Town has raised over $100 million by 2024 for its open banking and payments infrastructure, serving enterprises across Africa.
I think this is Stitch. Stitch.
Final answer.
Yes, final answer. Stitch.
Okay, we have it. Stitch is the final answer, and Stitch is correct.
Wow.
Amazing. So we're going to the checkpoints now, which is if you get this one right, why did I give you simple questions? Right.
You don't know that.
Yeah, so these are just taught me to make it more conk.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we spoke briefly about this few minutes ago. And once you get this one in the bag, you have two amazing mystery gifts in the bag. And it's what term describes a collection of reusable components, guideline, and design principle that ensures consistency across a digital product.
Yeah, this is design system.
Amazing stuff. And you briefly touched on it. We've now locked in our mystery gift too, which is
if I fail anyone, I still go with the mystery gift.
If you decide to bail, if you say you don't want to do it again,
I will go with it.
Yeah, you go.
But if I fail, I lose everything.
Yes, you lose everything.
This Lambo.
So you have two gifts locked down now.
All right.
Amazing. Yeah, you say you work with a lot of developers. So what does API stand for?
Okay, this is interesting because this is something I'm learning about. Like I'm trying to understand more. So API stand for Application Programming Interface. Application Programming Interface. But let me be right. Application Programming Interface.
Final answer.
Final answer, yes.
Amazing. Okay, I think we have that too.
Oh, correct. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
correct. Amazing.
The P and I wasn't sure of.
Yeah, Application Programming Interface. It's basically a way for people to access your stuff, so like don't expose your software to them in a way that is not nice. Yes, our question 12. So we have 4 questions now actually, and that means that you get to walk away with 3 gifts, 3 amazing mystery gifts. This one is good too. Which Nigerian fintech startup was co-founded by Somto Ifezue? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm so sorry. And Joshua Shibueze.
Yeah, these biggie vests.
Amazing stuff.
I followed them from beginning.
Who is the last?
That's I don't know when he.
I mean, I intentionally left because I mean she's quite popular, so a lot of people would know her.
Yeah.
I wanted to spotlight the other guys. Yeah. Amazing. And question 13. What is agency banking and why is it crucial in countries like Nigeria?
Yeah, this is the one that we're fighting about on Twitter.
So
it's basically when I would say banks or financial fintechs authorize agents to carry out financial services on their behalf. And why is it crucial? It's crucial why is it crucial? It's a double-edged sword in some sense was in rural areas, and like I remember there was a time we did a chat. Okay, answer the question. In rural areas where there are a lot of like financial underserved communities, that's what the fintech like to use. And where there's not a lot of
banking, the unbanked.
Penetration. But the thing is, in Lagos, there's a lot of agent banking, and Lagos have high concentration of banks. So, by the way, that's my answer.
So your final answer is correct. But there's like you mentioned, there's been like a lot of conversations around why we need them, why we don't need them, and a lot of people say they make banking more expensive because you now have to pay them a certain amount to access your own money. But I think about it in like a different way, right? So it's convenience for me, first of all. Although I don't use them again, I go all transfers now. If I go to a store and you don't take transfers, I'll walk away. But when I was actively using them, I would rather just go to a POS agent, for instance, and collect 1K and just pay them 100 naira.
Because if you take like the transport costs to go to a bank and withdraw from ATM. And the time, but you can just throw down your street.
And get your money out.
Get your money and like at the cost of 200.
So I think it's a very good opportunity cost.
But I think what gets annoying is if you buy something from a store, for example, that does POS business.
Right.
Sometimes when you want to pay with your card, they still want to collect charges. Like I always have that argument. Like you shouldn't collect charge for me because now I'm it's the POS is rendering a service to you. You're not rendering a service.
So I think one thing I also do, once you tell me you want to like take charge on top of the money I'm already paying, I just walk away. But if I'm in a very tight spot, like I need it urgent, I just like really overlook it.
I will just do transfer because many times the POS have account numbers now, like Money Point POS or OPPOS. I'll just transfer. Take your transfer.
It's amazing. It's like you're going to be our clever banking winner today.
Wow.
But we have 2 questions to get to that step.
Sorry, I have a question. Is the last mystery gift, is it equity in Clever?
I wish maybe you ask Tolu. Tolu, how far will you give him? Will you give him equity? Tolu. Okay, let's see. I mean, it might be. You never can tell. It might be. So in the startup world, what is a decacorn?
I think this is very rare in Nigeria.
We only have unicorns.
So a decacorn is a private company that has valuation up to $10 billion or above.
Amazing stuff. I need to make my questions
harder.
So because you're just eating them for breakfast. So this is our last question. And this is interesting because it's one of the products that has shaped how video sharing works. And let me not give it too many exposure, but which video sharing platform was founded by Chad Hudley, Steve Chen, and Jawed Karim in 2005? If you get this one, you walk away with 3 amazing amazing gifts.
Let me think about this. Can I ask follow-up question?
Can you ask follow-up questions?
Yeah, just to clarify.
Oh yeah, now let's have it.
Well, I think the follow-up question I asked will basically be giving me the answer. I think this is YouTube.
We're going to redo this show. we're going to redo this show and set another set of questions for him because he just became our clever winner. Please. A round of applause for him. And thank you for coming to our show to come and win our 3 amazing mystery gifts. So the first guest we had got away with 2 mystery
wow,
gifts.
So I'm the first person to
get. So you are the first person to
thank you very much.
To win 3 amazing mystery gifts.
God. I dedicate this win to my wife.
I would love amazing
She was reminding me that I should go and get ready for this. So.
Right, it's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. And for me, the real purpose is to help builders, operators share their story, and you've done that really well today. And I think a lot of people will find your story really, really amazing and inspiring.
Yeah.
Right. And thank you for sharing that.
I have a final word.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my final word is to tell people that you can just do things.
Right.
Because sometimes we feel like we need.
Sometimes
we feel like we need permission to step out of our comfort zone. But if you really want something, go out there and do it. I think one of the biggest triggers for me was, I think when I was in school, I was reading about the history of Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And I think he became a billionaire at 20 or 22. And I think that was my age, or my age was close to that at that point. And it really struck me, like it hits me hard that this is what this guy had achieved by this time. And it wasn't really about the money, but because of like the reason he became a billionaire was because of the value of the company he had built at that point. So yeah, you can just do things.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Thank you again for coming on the show to win our gifts that I was thinking that I would not give to you. And our sponsors, Clever Bank, they said that we should tell you that they are building the most amazing company that helps African freelancers and businesses. So if you are a freelancer in Africa, for instance, and you need a US account to collect your payments, Clever Bank is the one for you. And you can use my referral code to sign up. I'll put them on the screen and also in the caption. See you next episode. Cheers.